Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
Fastamai, good evening. It's Thursday, and if you've missed any of the news today, this is your rundown of what's been happening on the Isle of Man. Coming up first in the next few minutes, as the jury for the inquest into the death of a serving inmate at Isle of Man prison considers its verdict, we'll hear about the final pieces of evidence that they've heard today. Now, it might not be the best summer we've ever had, but there is some advice from Coast Guards for people to be careful near harbours and piers. And as we know, we will definitely be hosting the Island Games in 2029, so we're going to hear from two of the people who'll be tasked with getting us ready for them. All that, plus we'll keep an eye on the roads if there's anything you need to look out for on the way home, and you can text us 166 177. But first, with the time just gone 5 o'clock, let's join Chanel for the Man Benham news headlines.
3 deaths at the Isle of Man prison in 3 years have had a massive impact on staffing and sparked the loss of a huge number of employees. That's what the Deputy Governor has told the inquest of serving inmate Christopher Peter Corkill. The 46-year-old was found dead in his cell in February last year. Today, the jury heard from the Governor, who said there was a deep commitment to preventing further deaths at the prison. Ramsey commissioners have been given a draft timeline as part of its bid to merge the town's wards to provide equal voting for residents. The Department of Infrastructure has advised that a public inquiry would have to be held and could be started as soon as December. And 9 parks in Douglas have been awarded a green flag by the UK charity Keep Britain Tidy. Nobles Park, Summerhill Glen and Douglas Head were included in the list of sites which received the status. In international news, the first report from the UK COVID inquiries found people in the UK were failed by the government. The chair of the inquiry has put 10 recommendations, including a national response exercise, to be held every 3 years. Greater Manchester Police is promising action after a review into how people are treated in custody. It found some officers abusing their power, carrying out unlawful arrests and demeaning strip searches. And 5 Just Stop Oil campaigners have been jailed for 4 or 5 years each for organising a demonstration that blocked the M25 in 2022. Protesters climbed onto gantries for 4 days in a row. Those are your headlines. News at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Chanel. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. It's not brilliant this evening, cloudy with a few outbreaks of light rain or drizzle, as well as areas of hill fog. There's a risk of coastal mist and fog developing overnight. Mainly light southerly winds though, and a minimum overnight temperature of around 14. Again, overcast tomorrow, drizzly outbreaks of rain at times, extensive hill fog and an ongoing risk of that coastal mist and fog at times. The best of any brightness will develop in the north, and that'll be later in the day, and light to moderate southerly winds again. Top temperatures around 17. And just looking ahead to Saturday, it gets better. Rain, heavy at times, intending to clear overnight into Sunday, when there'll be light to moderate south or southeast winds and highest temperatures of 16. Sunset this evening, 9:39. Sunrise tomorrow morning, 11 minutes past 5.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
See the island like you've never seen it before on an incredible chauffeur-driven trike tour. A unique way to make memories that will last a lifetime. Gift vouchers available too. See iomtriketours.com for details and booking.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
Firestone Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 49667.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And lovely to have you with us. It is coming up to 5 past 5. 3 deaths at Isle of Man prison in 3 years has had a massive impact on staffing and sparked the loss of a huge number of employees. That's what the Deputy Prison Governor has told the inquest of serving inmate Christopher Corkill. The jury at Douglas Courthouse has now heard all of the evidence, as has our news editor Tessa Hawley, who's been in court for Manx Radio this week. And I just want to remind you that this report will contain information which some of you may find distressing. So Tessa, we're coming towards the end of the inquest. What else have we learned?
So, as you know, Mr. Corkill was found dead in his cell on the 24th of February last year during the morning unlocking procedure, and he'd taken his own life. One of the last people to give evidence at the inquest was Deputy Governor Martin Phillips. He told the jury that before the 3 deaths in 2020, 2022 and 2023, there had been no deaths at the prison for 40 years.
And what did the Deputy Governor then say about the impact that had had?
Well, he didn't hold back. Mr. Phillips told the jury that as all of the men had taken their lives in similar circumstances, his staff were now reluctant to do the morning checks and unlock procedure. He told the court the question they ask is, what are we going to find behind that door? The Deputy Governor also revealed that a number of prisoners had actually played jokes, and I use that term loosely, on staff by pretending to do the same.
Now, I understand the jury has also been told about improvements made at the prison following those deaths. What can you tell us about changes to procedures there?
That's right, and that's included changes to policies in a range of areas. One of those includes the need to cut the prison phone system as soon as there's a death in custody, which didn't happen in Mr. Corkill's case. This meant that his partner found out that he died from a relative rather than the police or prison service. The Deputy Governor also confirmed that there was now better attendance at safer custody meetings, which bring together key staff from across the prison.
So the Deputy Governor gave his evidence yesterday afternoon. Has the Governor also given evidence?
He has. Leroy Bonnick was the last witness, and he was called to the stand this morning. He talked at length about those changes to policy and procedures. A lot of those followed inspections by both His Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons and the Prisons and Probation Ombudsman. Mr. Bonnick said there was a deep commitment to preventing further deaths, but told the jury it was not possible to mitigate every single risk.
And Tessa, just tell us about the last thing that the jury heard.
Well, as you can imagine, the jury has heard a lot of evidence this week, but the last piece they were presented with was something that they'd actually requested. The jury had asked for a transcript of the telephone call which took place between Mr. Corkill and his partner just days before he died, and there wasn't one. So instead, the actual call was played to them. And in a particularly poignant moment, Mr. Corkill's voice filled the courtroom as the final thing he said to her was played to the court. Love you too. I'll speak to you soon.
So what happens now then?
So the jury will be given directions by the Deemster Graham Cook tomorrow morning, and they'll then be sent out to deliberate. But they have been reminded today that they are under no pressure of time, and they can take as long as they need to consider their findings and their verdict.
Tessa Hawley, thank you. You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. It's 8.5 minutes past 5. We've learnt today that unemployment on the Isle of Man fell by 13 people last month, but has increased by 22 people in the past 12 months to June. Lucy Murphy has the details.
The proportion of economically active people who are registered as being out of work remains stable at 0.6%. Job centre vacancies saw a sharp drop by 138 roles in comparison to the previous month, with a total of 777. Of these positions, 59% are full-time and the remaining 41% were part-time. The International Labour Organisation estimates 695 people are unemployed and looking for work, which equates to a rate of 1.5%. The IOL figure accounts for not only those who may be registered unemployed, but also those who may be actively looking for work, but who haven't registered themselves as out of a job. Catering, entertainment and retail are the sectors with the highest number of unemployed people. The fields with the highest number of job vacancies is in medical and health services, catering and entertainment and other business services, closely followed by tourist accommodation and retail. 162 men are unemployed compared with 88 women. Long-term unemployment is defined as anyone who has been out of work for a year or longer. As of June, there are 21 people who fall into this category. Geographically, the East is home to the most unemployed people at 165. The North, South and West sit at 38, 28 and 19 respectively.
Lucy Murphy reporting. Coming up to 5:10. Well, as we heard in the weather there, it's not absolutely brilliant, but summer has been stuttering into life, and the number of people entering the sea will inevitably increase over the next few weeks, especially with the summer holidays here. So whether it's paddleboarders, kayakers, swimmers, or just people going for a little paddle closer to shore, the need to observe basic safety guidelines must be remembered. And the Isle of Man Harbours and Coast Guard team is urging people to stay safe, especially near piers and harbours. Simon Richardson joins me now. And Simon, you've been looking at some of their tips to stay safe in the water.
Yes, Beth, and I suppose the most important starting point is to always respect the sea. Failure to do so can and has so often had tragic consequences. Now, some of the advice offered may seem blindingly obvious, but it's surprising how many people ignore the potential dangers. Now, living on an island like ours, we have strong currents, changeable weather and low water temperatures. Also boat traffic and floating debris, all of which pose significant risk. But some of the key tips from the Coast Guards include swim with a friend, and obviously having a companion in the water with you can be a lifesaver in an emergency. Always stay visible, wear brightly coloured swim caps and use safety floats or buoys with flags to make yourself visible to boats and jet skiers. I think we've seen those if you travel to England, people swimming in the Thames, that kind of thing. Also check for hazards like boats, buoys and submerged objects before getting into the water. And stay close to shore. Avoid swimming close to piers and harbour structures, and also avoid currents and floating debris. And make sure you know the risks, know your limits before you start. Don't push yourself, and if you feel tired or unsafe, get out of the water immediately. In the case of an emergency, it's important to try and stay calm. Signal for help, wave your arms and shout to alert others. Also float or tread water and conserve energy and stay afloat. If you get caught in a current, swim parallel with the shore to escape its pull. And if you have a phone with you, often not the case, of course, we're in the water, but if you do, call the emergency services or the Coast Guard. And remember to always, this is important, always share your plans with others.
Simon, thank you very much. Will you be going for a paddle anytime soon?
If the weather warms up a good 20 degrees, I might consider it.
That's a no then. Simon Richardson, thank you very much indeed. 5:12. Let's look at business matters now. And the people of Laxey have got the opportunity to find out more about proposals for a wind farm off the island's east coast at an event that is being held in the village today. This is the first in a series of gatherings around the island, which has been organised by Ørsted, the company behind plans for the Moorvannin offshore farm. So today's event started at 2 p.m. It's running until 7 p.m. in the Laxey Glen Pavilion, and it's really for people to engage with members of the Ørsted team. Tomorrow it's happening in Ramsey. The Ørsted representatives will be on hand in the courthouse. That's on Water Street, and again that's between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. The Department of Justice and Home Affairs is making changes to licensed premises legislation with the hopes of giving greater flexibility to the hospitality industry. Previously, the licensee or responsible person couldn't be absent for longer than 2 hours, which were unavoidable. The duration now is being doubled, and instead of reasons being unavoidable, they'll instead need to be reasonable. However, reasonable is not actually defined in the Liquor Licensing and Public Entertainments Amendment Regulations 2024. Furthermore, a licensee or responsible person may be absent for less than 14 days if operations could be delegated to a suitably qualified or experienced individual. You can find out more about that at manxradio.com. Well, let's look at the stock market report now, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall. And UK and European stocks were muted as European Central Bank held rates steady, as was widely expected. US indices were in the green early today following a heavy tech sell-off that saw the Nasdaq Composite deliver its worst daily performance since December 2022. Oil was broadly steady, finding support from continuing expectations of a looming cut in US interest rates. That was after the release of jobs data and a larger than expected decline in US crude stocks. The latest oil price stands off 0.04% at $85.9. Gold prices edged higher, trading not too far away from a record high scaled in the previous season as rising anticipation of a US interest rate cut, as we know, in September boosted demand. Gold stands at $2,465. At the close, the FTSE 100 was up 0.21% at 8,204. The latest from the Dow Jones a short time ago, it was off 0.28% at 41,081, and the Nasdaq was off 0.9% at 17,834.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, all looking good down at the steam packet. There are a couple of delays at the airport. Nothing too bad though, but just keep an eye on that if you are expecting to meet somebody or if you're heading off somewhere else. And then on the roads, it's really the main things that we know about already. That resurfacing in Onchan that has been causing some traffic issues all this week. We know there are diversions in place. There's also a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit as well. And just remember that you can get to Corkall's Garage forecourt from the direction of Douglas only. And access to the Parade of Shops, which is opposite Corkall's, is available from Summer Hill Road only. Just looking ahead to Sunday in Onchan though, this road will close again in both directions, and that is for work to continue from 7 a.m. until no later than 11 p.m. Laxey, temporary lights on Ramsey Road at the Minorca Hill Junction, that's 24 hours a day. Remember, the swing bridge in Ramsey is going to be closed again tomorrow from 9 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. That is for repairs to the swing mechanism. In Peel, there are closures in places on phases in the Ballabooey Road, that's for water main work. And Castertown until tomorrow, temporary lights on Victoria Road, that's 24 hours a day for gas repairs. And just remember again, in Colby until the end of the month, closures in phases on the Ballakill Ferrick Road. If there's anything you spot on your way home tonight you think we should know about, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
Quayside.
It is 17 minutes past 5 now, and staying on the thought of travel, could we see plans for a new bus station in the nation's capital by the end of this year? Well, it's the hope of Tynwald, which has tasked the Department of Infrastructure with bringing a full plan for debate in the court by the December sitting this year. If you remember, in July last year, a motion brought forward by Douglas East MHK Joni Farragher said that establishing a new facility should be a priority, and that motion was actually supported by members. But with no movement on the project yet, she's brought that call back at this month's sitting. She told our political correspondent Phil Gaughan that she's persistent, if nothing else.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to be, really. And I think you have to be with this sort of thing when, as far as I can see, although the DOI minister has said there is work going on in the background, well, I want to see what that work is, you know, and I want us to actually see some fruitful and tangible physical results of that work so that we can actually start having bus facilities in our capital. I don't think it's that much to ask, and I actually think that the DOI minister is on board with the principle. I think at this point we're kind of just, okay, how are we going to do that? Well, now that we've got a second motion and we've got some very helpful amendments to say that we will have a debate about that plan. So that plan will now be brought to Tynwald for this December, and there will be a debate. So this time around, hopefully, the DOI can't just say, well, we're waiting on Lord Street, because there was an amendment to say that we shouldn't be waiting on the Lord Street site being completed, which we've been waiting for 22 years for that. So we can't really continue to do that. And secondly, the other amendment to say that we should actually have a debate about that plan that they will bring forward in December of this year. So, you know, keeping everything crossed, and, you know, I'm going to keep in communication with the minister that we will have that debate in December, and we will actually see some movement on this, getting bus facilities in our capital city.
That is the Douglas East MHK Joni Farragher. Coming up to 20 past 5. Well, last night Ramsey commissioners met and discussed a number of motions which had been submitted by board members, as well as the recently cancelled Ramsey in Bloom competition. A new zero rating policy for ruinous properties will be created, and also a whistleblowing policy is going to be introduced. Local democracy reporter Emma Draper was at the meeting.
An update was provided on the local authority's decision to merge the town wards into one for the purposes of local authority elections. The Department of Infrastructure has advised that a public inquiry would have to be held and is currently drafting a scheme based on the resolution. However, a draft timeline has been sent, which could see the changes implemented before the local authority elections in April next year. If this was to be followed, a public consultation would be at the end of the month, and Tynwald approval would need to be sought at its October sitting, with the inquiry in December this year or January next year. The acting town clerk said during the meeting that due to the election process starting in March, it may not come into force until 2029. 6 motions were submitted by Commissioner Lamar Crane. These included 2 updates to the website and painting a pedestrian walkway in the Station Road car park. These were approved unanimously. However, Ms Crane's motion to have a public ruinous properties register sparked a debate. Her motion is to publish a table with dates where contact has been made with property owners, the address and the dates of any notices given. A vote was taken and was split. Chair Rob Cowell, who was initially on the fence, used his casting vote to support the motion. Another of her motions, which was unanimously approved by the board, is to create a zero rating policy, similar to the one recently announced by Douglas Council. Separately, a notice of motion was filed by Commissioner June McGuinness to introduce a whistleblowing policy for the local authority. Mr McGuinness's document is based on the government's guidance and was unanimously agreed to by the board. An update was provided about the cancellation of the Ramsey and Bloom event that was due to be happening this weekend. The acting town clerk said that there wasn't enough entrants into the competition, but admitted the announcement could have been handled better. Ramsey commissioners will next meet on the 21st of August.
Emma Draper reporting. Now, those behind the host team for the 2029 Island Games are thrilled to see the event return here in 4 years' time, but say a lot of work and challenges lie ahead between now and then. Gary Jakeman and Jill Gillings are from the Island Games Association of Man.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's really good to sort of have it happen here again, and I'm sure that the island will welcome all of the thousands of people that will come along. It'll be really, really good.
Yeah, I'm delighted, especially for the competitors who get a chance to compete on their home turf.
Our responsibility is for the team, and in the same way that our responsibility is for the team when we go to Orkney, when we go to Faroes, it's the same for the Isle of Man. There's slightly different circumstances, but that's the same. All of the Island Games are different anyway. But that is our sole responsibility, not anything to do at all with the organisation of it all.
Just how much thought and how much work has to go through the logistics side of things, not just the 2029 games, but the 2 games coming before that as well for the Isle of Man?
Yes, I've already spoken to several air charter companies about flights. Jill has been working with the Guernsey accommodation people. It's not going to be cheap, either for flying or for accommodation, and it might come as a bit of a shock to some people.
How much of a relief could that come to the competitors come 2029 when they don't have those costs of travel, for example?
Well, 2027, we're going to Faroe, and that isn't going to be cheap. Getting there, no one has a clue yet how that's going to happen. We're toying around with ideas of ATRs like we did to Guernsey, but that will mean 3 of them. Don't know yet, still in its infancy.
There are many people who'd love to see every single sport involved, but each year there will be those who will be disappointed, and judo, sailing, bowls and shooting are the ones that will miss out in 2029. I mean, what conversations, if any, have you had with those sports to try and explain the decisions that have happened there?
It's not our responsibility to do that because we've not been on the sort of the bid committee, and it's a completely different set of people who make those decisions. All I can do is empathise with them and say it's very sad. I've known other sports that have been missed out, and it's devastating for some people.
That's Jill Gillings and also Gary Jakeman there. Now, before 2029, the next Island Games will be held next year in Orkney, followed by the Faroe Islands in 2027. And one of the biggest and longest established events in the Isle of Man cycling calendar is returning for 2024 this coming Sunday. And what's more, recent changes to the Fred Kelly Road Race make it more unpredictable and exciting, as Niall Quiggin, director and treasurer of the events organisers, the Manx Viking Wheelers Club, explains.
So the Fred Kelly Road Race is one that's been going on for donkey's years. Talking to some of the older members of the club, it used to go here, there and everywhere, all over the islands, but now it's been simplified to take on a short circuit in the north of the islands, which is really good for spectators and it's flat, so it's easy for newbies to jump into. And then it still finishes up the Faulty Will Plantation Road just outside Sulby Reservoir, so it's a hilltop finish, which is a bit different for races we do on the islands. It provides opportunities for stronger riders to show what they can do, but at the same time there's no massive hill where people are going to get dropped, and yet that's in line with what we've been doing up in Derby as well. But the important thing to remember is that these Sunday road races, we still want our top guys to be able to show what they're all about.
What kind of traits do you have to have as a rider to really excel on a climb finish rather than, say, a bunch sprint?
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to suit the guys, the lighter guys, or the guys that are more explosive. In the past, the race went all the way up to the bungalow, like I say, which definitely suited your super lightweight riders, and your Manx pros that at home will no doubt take the win up there. But now I think with that finish at Silver Reservoir, it's kind of a case of, a bigger rider, if they can get a big enough gap before the climb, they could have a chance of winning it. But at the same time, if a bigger rider goes toe-to-toe with a 50-kilo junior going up there, they're going to find it hard. So, yeah, it's about where you put yourself at the start of the climb relative to other riders and your own abilities. So, yeah, it adds a whole other element. The Hilltop finish is something completely different. The Spring Series and the Summer Series, they've given the riders opportunity to show how they are on flat terrain, both in time trials and road races. Having a feature like this makes riders think differently as to how they approach the race and where they're going to leave themselves going into the finish. So it could be for the big boys, it could be for the small boys, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the smart rider who's going to win this race.
That is Niall Quiggin, Director and Treasurer of the events organisers, the Manx Viking Wheelers Club. And speaking of sporting matters, here's Rob Pritchard.
Faster, my Beth, and we're going to stick with two wheels, in fact, but we're going to be looking at motorsport. Davies Motorsport has confirmed its two-rider lineup to challenge for honours at this year's Manx Grand Prix. The Burton-upon-Trent-based crew has announced Paul Jordan and George Halliday will compete for them across 3 classes at next month's meeting on the Snaefell Mountain course. Northern Irishman Jordan will campaign a TX500 Yamaha in the Classic Senior event, along with a 350cc Honda machine in the reintroduced Classic Junior class. Elsewhere, Ireland resident Halliday will be the team's sole representative in the Classic Superbike race, which the team made its debut in last year on a YZF 750 Yamaha ridden last year by Mike Brown. The 2024 Manx Grand Prix is due to take place from the 18th to the 26th of August, as a reminder. Well, elsewhere, Manx TT competitor Ryan Kringle is seeking a team to join for this year's Manx Grand Prix. In a short statement on social media, the Douglas rider says he is currently without a ride for next month's meeting and wants to hear from anyone who may know of a team which is looking for a competitor. Kringle was part of the Mistral Classic race team for last year's event, competing in the Classic Superbike race alongside then teammate Paul Jordan. Well, staying on two wheels and in cycling, Mark Cavendish once again finished safely inside the time cut on another hilly stage of the Tour de France today, completing stage 18 just under 21 minutes behind the stage winner. Elsewhere, fellow Manx rider Zachary Walker finished 48th on the second stage of the Valle d'Aosta under 23 event in Italy this afternoon. And last night, Matthew Bostock continued his strong form at the British National Circuit Series, finishing second in yesterday evening's Sheffield Grand Prix. Bostock, who competes for Ribble Rebellion, has already won 2 of the 5 rounds of the series so far. And finally tonight, in football, FC Isle of Man is appealing for more volunteers to come on board and help out on match days. The club says it's on the hunt for more stewards to help out, both for this weekend's Summer Festival of Football at the Bowl from Friday to Sunday, and for the upcoming 2024-25 NWCFL Premier Division season, which starts next weekend on the 27th of July. This weekend sees FC Isle of Man and 3 other teams of Chester, Radcliffe and Lancaster City take part in a series of matches, as mentioned, between Friday and Sunday. Anyone interested in getting involved as a steward for the club is asked to contact stewards@fcisleofman.im.
Rob, thank you very much. Your pronunciation there of that Italian place is very good.
I hope I've got that nailed down. If anyone wants to point it out that I have got it wrong, then apologies if I have.
Tomorrow with an accent, please. Thank you very much indeed, Rob Pritchard. That is all from Update this evening. As always, if there's something you'd like to let us know about, we'd love to hear from you. newsroom@manxradio.com is the best email address. Coming up next this evening, it's Shaq Lair with Bob Carswell, then Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley, followed by a little light music with Morris Powell. Whatever you're doing this evening, have a great one. Update will be back at 5 p.m. tomorrow.